TikTok, it's time to rock. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the channel. We have Johnny and Jimmy here. Good to see you, brothers.
I'm going to be John for tonight, though.
You're going to be Conks tonight. John or Conks,
Yeah.
but Jimmy is always going to be Jimmy.
That's it.
That's it.
Top Jimmy. How are you, brother? Good to see you.
I believe it.
Top Jimmy.
Doing good, man. Doing great. Great now that you guys are here, man. Except for Tom.
Yeah.
I
thought I lost you, brother. I think we're losing him. Johnny, what's been happening?
This is what's been happening right here. Can't get them in this country. I got to go to like a specialty shop, you know?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good to see you, bro. So tell us a little bit about what's been happening with you.
Well, pedal finally came.
Hold on one second. Do you guys hear? Is there an echo? Is there a delay somewhere?
Nope.
I don't.
Nope.
All right, hang on. Let me go out and come back in.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I knew there was something up because obviously we were asking him some questions just as we went live, Johnny. But good to see you, bro. Good to have you on the channel again. We've got an interesting show lined up. We've got a very good friend of ours that we've been watching and following. You've been live with him before, so I'll get you to introduce him very, very soon. But what have you been up to lately, brother?
Well, my pedal finally came yesterday. So that's a good news. Finally. So you know what? I'm going to get a little crazy here right now again here. Can you see me popping in there? I got a pedal cam going here. There it is.
Wow.
There it is, folks. I have it all. I got it set up here.
Oh, wow.
One in there. The little 112 cabinet right there, the EVH cabinet. That's the left. Then I got the 412 is the dry center channel. And then over in the corner there, I have a 212 for the right, for the wet, dry, wet. And so I have the white H9 there, even tied. And I have the new STE 3000 pedal going stereo into the power amp, like left and right there. So, and it's, I have to say, it sounds amazing. I had the Boss DD500 pedal in that spot before. And, you know, when that pedal came out, Yoshi from Boss, who was the CEO at the time, he said that he had them because he did the original algorithm or whatever circuit for the STE 3000, the rack models. They were his creation, I guess. So he had them put it in that DD500 and it's called Vintage Digital in there. And you could split it into two delays, you know, like 398, 798. But I'll tell you what, this thing, they have the proprietary Eddy settings that are locked in there and that you can't look at the parameters of or anything like that. They kind of basically keep them secret. But it's like I said to Les Paul Gibson, I said, it's almost like there's something else going on because it just sounds, everything, just the tone, everything sounds better. I don't know if they got some kind of filtering going on and, you know, whatever. I don't know what's going on in there, but it sounds incredibly good when you're in the room here with it. So, you know, $600 US, but, you know, it really is worth it. It's just really a high quality pedal, you know? So so far, you know, I've been just messing around with the EVH presets because I got the, you know, the wet, dry, wet stuff going on here, but they're amazing. You know, there's the first one is like a long delay. The second one is like a shorter delay. And I think the third is and the fourth, maybe the third is a shorter delay also. I think the first one's a long one. The second and third are shorter delays. And the fourth one is like a early Van Halen, kind of like a slapback, like the Echoplex, you know, type of delay. And, but you know, like I really like the one on, it's called EVH3. And it's
fantastic.
Yeah, it just sounds great. So, I mean, I highly recommend it. It's
Fantastic. I'm glad you managed to give us a little bit of a what's going on here. That's better. Bit of a rundown on that pedal, because we've done a couple of shows on the channel, folks, about this pedal. We've had the opportunity, didn't we, guys, to have Chris Gill come on and talk a little bit of the backstory with that pedal. We've got Nerd Halen in here saying the EVH SDE 3000 is the only delay pedal you need. So that's a great endorsement for the pedal. So
I have to agree, 100%.
Yeah. And obviously the quality of the tone that you guys have been talking about is reflected in the price. So what do you expect?
No, it's true. I mean, listen, that new H90 pedal Eventide, that's like $900, right? So I guess that's the era we're headed into for some of these high-end quality pedals, But I have to say, he's right about that. This pedal is the only one you need, because I thought the DD500 did a great job, but until you plug it in with these presets, I don't know what's going on with these presets. I'm sure somebody's going to hack them at some point, but it just, aside from the delays, it just sounds better. It just sounds amazing. So I don't know what, there's some kind of secret sauce in that pedal, but it's definitely high quality. So highly recommend.
Brilliant. I can't wait to get mine. Jimmy, do you want to give us a little bit of feedback, because you've got the pedal too, before we get our guest in? Do you want to give us a bit of feedback, because you've been playing with your one for a little while now, haven't you?
You know what? I got to go over Conx's and try it out. Wet, dry, wet. I don't run mine wet, dry, wet. Like I think, like I kind of mentioned in the previous show about this. I just run mine through a straight cab, and but it does add something. I don't use the EVH presets, because if you run it through a straight cab, there's too many repeats, and Conx kind of it kind of like confirmed my guess that those presets work differently if you're running wet, dry, wet, because you never really heard Eddie with a lot of repeats, and that one, when I run those EVH presets, there's a lot of repeats, and it just doesn't sound right. So, but I do run I run mine. There's an A01 preset that I run, like I always have on. It just widens my sound a little bit. And then, I have an A02, which I use for Cathedral and stuff. But, it's really just those two presets. But I mean, like that, like was mentioned before, it's pretty much the only delay pedal. I'm not big into delay. I only really have it because of, like I mentioned before, like in the previous show, I was kind of on the fence on whether or not I was going to keep it. If it was going to add something to my sound that was noticeable, then I was going to keep it. Otherwise, I've got delay. I've got two H9s that I can get delay out of. I got a Kemper I can get delay out of. You know what I mean? But It does add something, and it's worth. And I have mine constantly on that A01 patch, and then it's like 99% of the show.
You guys are going to have to do a video when you go to Conx's place, and you're going to go through his wet dry. Do a video for us, and we'll put the video up on the channel. And
cool.
yeah, I want to see your face change.
Oh yeah, no, I've you know what? I'm gonna go visit Les Paul Gibson next weekend, right? And I haven't talked to him about this, but when I talk to him tomorrow, I'll mention it. He runs his wet, dry, wet, so hopefully I can get a taste of that. We can't really turn it up too loud, but maybe I can get a taste of it. So we'll see.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think that I almost think we maybe should revisit it at some point. And now that it's out, and most people are starting to get them, the ones who had pre-ordered it, and maybe it'll go over little things, and maybe have somebody on to talk about the little like there's certain things that I want to figure out, because there's like that noise gate, and I'm trying to figure out how to get that. I got it to work on the EVH setting, but like if I change it to another setting, I lose that noise gate on there. So I want to find out if there's a way to keep that on there, because it keeps everything nice and quiet. But I mean, maybe we can revisit it at some point that way. But and just talk about certain things, like Jimmy said, when using the wet, dry, wet, the key is your wet cabinets on the left and right shouldn't be as loud as your center cabinet. They should be, your tone should be still coming out of that center one, and they should just be kind of, that it's there, but it's not overpowering everything. That And it's the same as the Eventide, like the H9. You can't have the mix all the way up to 100% on that. You know what I mean? You really got to, I back it down to like in the 30s, I think, you know what I mean? Because it's, if you have it all the way up on 100%, and it's different with like, if you're using one cabinet or if you're using like wet dry wet setup or something like that, it's like, you really got to dial it in and mess around with it to find the sweet spot. So that's just another thing, you know, I guess, you know, anybody that has those things realizes that after a while. I know Alan Garber even said that with the H9, you know, so.
Yeah, less
all right, bro.
Mix and the, you know, having the mix right and an effect. So I mean, he's right. He's right about that.
Yeah, he said to drop it back to 50 and then go from there. You know what I mean? So, but
we'll have to do another show, obviously, on this pedal a lot more, because it's interesting that you guys are finding and discovering things more and more about it. So look forward to it. Look, do we want to get our guest in, Johnny, and get him involved in the conversation? Do you want to introduce him, brother?
Absolutely. So we've been waiting to talk to this guy for quite some time. Everybody knows him. They followed his videos for the last few years on YouTube, you know, and all his research that he's done on Eddie's guitars and just like the incredible things that he's found out from like his forensic, you know, studies of the guitars, like the Frankenstein. And, you know, he's just, he's tried all kinds of different things to figure these things out. It's just great stuff to watch, but we're glad to have him on. Everybody knows him as Johnny B, John Burgess, and let's bring him in.
Wow, that's some applause. Wow.
You get some applause. Good to see you, Johnny B. Thank you, brother, for coming on. As Johnny said, you know, trying to organise and get guests on a channel's always a negotiation, isn't it? Because you've got different time zones and continents to negotiate and days. So the fact that we've managed to get this sorted is a great thing for our channel. Thank you, Johnny.
You hear us, John?
I think you might be having some problems. Yeah, he's talking, but he can't.
Is he mute? You're not on mute, are you?
No, he's not. No, he's fine here on this side. He'll have to sort his settings out. Jimmy, you got a story you want to tell us while he wants to fix his audio? Do you want to tell us an event that's happening today for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were talking about this, you know, we were talking about earlier about what to talk about, and it dawned on me that 8 years ago today, Van Halen was at Hartford, and it's funny because I was looking for tickets, and on like, I don't know, one of these like Ticketmaster sites or whatever, Grubhub, I think. I mean, not Grubhub, well, Ticket Hub, whatever it's called, right? And these tickets showed up for Hartford, and they were front row. They were, you know, row A, you know, seat 1 and 2, like right in front of Eddie. So I was watching them for a bit, and I mean, these were expensive, but you know, as the time got closer to the show, like a month out, the prices dropped. So I ended up getting those 2 tickets, and I ended up going with my nephew, and we were right there. We were like right in front of Eddie. And it was, you know, we saw Kenny Wayne Shepherd, you know, filmed a little bit of that, and I was right on the gate there, on the barrier, and I was talking to this my friends joke about this all the time. So I was talking to the security guard, who was, you know, Asian, right? And you know, we were talking. He was asking me like how I got these seats, you know, I told him about, you know, Ticket Hub or whatever it's called, and blah, blah, blah. And I got the tickets, da, da, da. So the guy was pretty cool, you know, during like, you know, most of the, you know, Kenny Wayne Shepherd show. And then like my plan was to just film, you know, Van Halen from the front row. And somebody did the exact same idea a couple of nights later at Jones Beach. But I wasn't bothering anybody. There was nobody in front of me. I didn't have any flashes on or anything, but and you can see it on my YouTube channel. When they came out, I filmed like the first 5 minutes of Eddie and stuff, you know, right in front of me, right? And
I can hear.
It's is it working for Johnny B? Johnny, you working?
That, guys.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Carry
Anyway,
on your story. Carry on your story, Jimmy.
just to finish up the story real quick, the guy was giving me a really hard time the whole show, telling me not to film when everybody around me was filming, right? And I had my nephew right next to me, right? And he was gonna throw me out of the gig. He was gonna toss me out. And I wasn't bothering anybody, and everybody else around me is filming. It's a lot more intricate than that, but I just want to wrap it up. But that's what happened. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see like minute-long clips of Eddie, because I could only get like a minute or two of filming him before the guy. I mean, like the last time the guy talked to me, he said he was going to toss me out, and like I'm like, yeah, what the hell, man? I'm not bothering anybody. Anyway, that's really it.
Yeah.
If you guys are watching on a replay, or if you're here live and you want to find out where Jimmy's YouTube channel is, I'll attach that link here in the description to go and watch these videos of Jimmy and the mayhem that he involves himself into. But anyway,
the first 5 minutes when you see Eddie come out, the first 5 minutes is spectacular. Anyway,
fantastic. Thank you for filling us in with that interlude while we managed to get Johnny back. Thank you, Jimmy. Johnny, how are you?
Better now. That was a little weird there. Hey, no sound. These guys aren't talking to me. Oh, it's all good now. Boy, technology. Hey, you gotta love this.
It's amazing what popping in and popping out can do on StreamYards.
When in doubt, reboot.
Yeah, you got it, brother. You got it. But Johnny,
cool story, though. I didn't hear it, but I'm sure it was a cool story.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and watch it on a replay. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
No repeats on this channel, brother. Can you just do us a favor? Obviously, there'll be some folks here that know a little bit about your history and your experiences with Van Halen and guitar building. But for the people that don't, and the people that want to watch on a replay who come back and visit our channel, give us a bit of a background, please, on what you do.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a guitar builder, really. I claim to be a guitar builder. I don't say I'm a luthier by any degree, because, I just started out years ago, just piecing things together. And of course, Eddie was a huge inspiration for that, and how he always talked about just fooling around with stuff. And I think it encouraged all of us to really do that and to come up with our own creations. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to do a copy of the Frankenstein guitar. And I'm kind of a little good at being a detective, a little good, kind of good at doing research. I also don't leave anything, like if I have a question, I don't give up. I just keep going until I find it. So I have this sort of knack about doing that kind of thing. So I did a whole bunch of these videos that were really kind of guitariology, some people said, examining things, coming up with things that people hadn't even really been talking about. And when I came up with stuff like the gaffer tape, people kind of went, what is he talking about? In the beginning, when I first started asking questions, people were telling me to shut up, like you don't even know what you're talking about. And because they hadn't heard any of these things, like the drips on the bottom horn. Like, what are you talking about? There's no drips in the bottom horn. It's like, well, I can clearly see there's drips in the bottom horn. So, but I've been a painter all my life, and I've been in the wood industry all my life. So I have a lot of skill sets that can come into analyzing a lot of photos and looking at things and deciphering what these things mean and how that goes to the timeline of the guitar and all this kind of stuff. I fell down a lot of rabbit holes trying to figure out a lot of stuff, and it's been a lot of fun until a couple of months ago. A few things happened, but it'll be fun again. That's kind of, I guess, a little bit of in a nutshell, I guess.
Well, John, we learned so much from like from the minutia, like the knot that was, you know, the famous knot on the second body, you know, the second that was, you know, you located. I remember I could never find that thing. And then you actually were able to find photos of the guitar before it was painted where
Yeah.
you could actually see the knot. I mean, it was just like incredible, like detective work, you know, all through.
Yeah, and that was before any of the Met photos came out.
Exactly.
I think that's when people took me seriously, when I described the knot exactly the way it turned out to be, because nobody could really see it unless you were looking at the guitar.
Yeah. And
the only photos around at the time before the Met photos were very blurry photos.
right.
But you see, that's the thing is with my wood knowledge and all, I could look at a blurry image and go, oh, that's a knot. And then, of course, oh, wait a minute, that's the famous knot. That's where it's located.
It's amazing when it all fell into place, like, you know, things fall into place like that. I just like, but you know, you're like, you do detective work, is like, even the fact that Eddie and Alex painted house numbers on sidewalks and with the spray paint and thing. I mean, like exploring that avenue with, well, listen, they had paint for doing that. And, you know, in their dad's garage, you know, you could see paint, I think, sprayed at spots in the garage there too. I like, photos we've seen, right?
There's a photo now, you know, who knows if that's paint from the guitar or not. Now, I know Walter, Eddie's friend, told me that when he went in the backyard in '79, the day that he was painting the red coat, it was hanging outside off of a microphone stand. And I said, wasn't it in the shed at the back? And he kind of didn't know what I was talking about as far as the shed goes. He goes, no, it was hanging off a microphone stand by a coat hanger. And that made complete 100% sense, because the coat hanger would have gone through the neck hole, and then that would have put the horns up. And we know that's how he painted it, because the red paint is thicker at the top horn and barely anything really behind the bridge. And that's exactly how he would have painted it. So he was dead on in his description, although he didn't realize that how right he was, if you know what I mean. But I think it was actually painted probably close to the house under an awning, because it was supposed to be raining that day.
That's what I was going to ask about the rain. Yeah.
There's a photo of the backyard taken a couple of years ago, and there's an awning just outside the back door. Now, I don't know what it looked like back in '79, but I'm willing to bet Southern California, they would have had an awning in the backyard. You know, you wouldn't be able to sit up there. So that would make sense if he painted it under the awning, out of the rain, and not in the shed. Maybe there's too many things in the shed. I don't know. But interesting stuff. But
yeah. And as far as the Schwinn color, do we pretty much know for a fact now that of the exact red that was used on it? Because, you know, in all the photographs of the year, obviously they're distorted. The colors are, you know, all look different in every photo. But what shocked me the most when I walked into the Met when I first saw it was that it was like almost like a candy apple red. It was not like a maroon or darker red like some of the photos. And I looked at my wife and she goes, wow. She goes, it's a lot more red, real red than I thought it was from those photos that I've seen over the years. You know, that was the first thing that caught my attention about it.
It's exactly candy apple red. It's what it is. And sprayed over a thin layer of white. So that kind of fools the eye. It's an optical illusion, really. But that's what bicycles were painted with. And Schwinn, most of the paint that Schwinn made were candy apple colors, a translucent color. So yeah, it's exactly what it was. And it does change color because of that depth of the paint. It's not opaque where the light reflects off the surface. So it kind of goes through the paint, bounces off the white layer underneath, and then back out. So you've seen a lot of photos where it looks like a dark red, and then you've seen photos like in the Met where it's a bright red. It almost, like you say, the color is scarlet red, which is a very bright red. It's on the color wheel, kind of what you would call your basic red. It's not dark, it's not light, it's right there in between.
Yeah, I guess with the Met, like museum lighting, you know what I mean? It was like maybe that it made it more pronounced that it was actually very like red, as opposed to a lot of the photos where maybe the lighting wasn't as good or whatever like that, and it just appeared to be darker or whatever. But that was kind of very surprising to me, that part alone from there. And I mean, there's just so many aspects of the guitar. I mean, you've covered them all over the year. What was the biggest surprise to you that you found out in all the research about the guitar?
I think one of the biggest things was that the body's on a 5-degree angle. The seam down the middle isn't straight. and that leads to the knot. There's also bandsaw marks behind the bridge where the strap holder is, and then on the bottom of the neck pocket, underneath the white paint, you can clearly see them. So this tells a story about why they're there. There's a reason, and bandsaw marks should disappear once you route the final shape. And if they're still there, that there's a reason. So that means that they shifted the template, and being that it's on a 5-degree angle, they've shifted the template to try to get around that knot hole to get most of it removed, and they didn't. They tried, but
Right.
It tells a story that this was not intended to be a number one from the start. They knew it was the scrap wood that was fine to use, but it wasn't going to be aesthetically nice. It wasn't going to be a perfect body. It's going to be a solid color. So, and that's exactly how Eddie described it, is he got it from the bottom of a pile of seconds.
Right.
So it's kind of fascinating to look at all these things and figure this stuff out. We've always heard that there's a knot, but I don't think Eddie ever realized that the seam was on a 5-degree angle.
Right. And that's all because of that knot. It all goes back to that knot, right?
That's it. And that goes back to woodworking. I mean, you're always trying to work around knots because wood isn't perfect, and you don't just throw everything away because there's a slight imperfection. You try to work around it as much as possible and try to make it work.
Fill it and cover it with paint, right?
Exactly. Anybody out there that's refinished a guitar that's black or whatever probably finds these little imperfections or sees something that, oh, this isn't quite perfect. I wonder why. Well, that's where it goes.
So it truly is a unique body shape then because of that. It's not like every other guitar that came out of that batch, out of that template, unless they had like a knot or something like that they would try to work around. They're pretty much. I mean, I guess like nowadays, I always say, when they come off a CNC, they're all identical. But then as soon as a human hands get on it with the router and route the roundovers, it changes the shape, depending on how many beers the guy had the night before and how tired he was, every guitar.
A template can slip if it's not put on properly. I think Charvel, that's where the body was made, apparently, right? There's a contradictory of opinion on this, but it would have been made the same way. It's basically, like you say, made by hand on a table router, pedestal router. So there's lots of things can get in the way, like sawdust can get underneath that can tilt things, and that's where router lines come from and all that, which is on the bottom of the body. Right. In fact, the body that the Frankie was made out of is still rough size. It's not finished size. It's probably about a 16th bigger all the way around than a finished body.
It's funny because you can notice that when at the Met, I just looked at it and I was like, we know Eddie wasn't a big guy. He wasn't a tiny guy either. I look at, like we were talking about Nuno Betancourt. Nuno was a lot smaller than even Eddie was, even if you see them standing next to each other. But Eddie, when he had that guitar on, he looked like almost like a child with this giant guitar, like almost like Angus, you know what I mean? But he wasn't that small. He was about 5'8.5" probably, but he was thin, obviously. But that guitar looked like very oversized for him, And
I always wondered when he came out with the Wolfgang, it's slightly smaller, the body, the headstock, like everything. I was always wondered if there was a little bit in Eddie's head, like, hey, I don't want to look so small compared to the guitar. Shrink the guitar a little bit.
Yeah, you might be right. I always say, like, EVH, they should get a little more creativity. And there's a lot of guys that are over 6 foot that the Wolfgang looks ridiculous on, and they should make a Wolfgang XL, like a special order where they scale the body up just enough where it doesn't look ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Because have a sliding scale. You put your height in, and then the guitar comes out.
Exactly. You come up with they'd probably sell a lot of them because I think a lot of people would say it doesn't. I think that's one of the reasons we said that Wolfgang doesn't play a Wolfgang, because it would look ridiculous on him. And he goes for like the 335 type of size because it just looks more.
You're right. It's a big guitar. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, you think, how vain can people be? But like, you're out on stage, you're right there, you're getting thousands of photos taken of you. You kind of want to look good, right?
Yeah,
sure.
I have a theory about Eddie through the years and how the Wolfgang was designed, and I think goes right back to like 78, 79 when he was playing with heavy bodies, light necks, and that goes right into the Wolfgang being the tiny headstock, the way that the body's designed, you know, I don't know. We could talk for hours about that, but
Yeah, it's just ironic though. I was going to say about the Frankenstein and the 5150 body were both unfinished bodies, because if you look at the back of the 5150, the routes aren't even completed where the neck plate is in that area there. They kind of just stop. They don't like blend in. So it was almost like he was in a rush, you know, or
it
well,
seems like a lot of
obviously
heady stuff was like that. You know, even like the Bumblebee neck had the giant knot in it. You know, like you know, like it seems like I don't know if he wanted the stuff that was imperfect. You know, like he wasn't going for the perfect thing. It's almost like he wanted the blemish. He was going to make something good out of something that nobody wanted. I don't know. It seems to be very characteristic of a lot of his stuff.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
So Johnny, just for the folks who may not know this, how many videos did you have on your channel doing this archaeology on EVH guitars, please?
Oh, I'll tell you, I took down, I think it was 17.
And you still have those videos available on your YouTube channel, so you can share those videos to people on a private link?
I've tried to, but I can. Yeah, because most of those videos, all except one, are on private right now, just to protect them. And we can talk about all that stuff with the copyright stuff. But yeah, eventually I will bring things back. I will bring, if not the original video, I was thinking about bringing like kind of a best of, like segments of the video with certain information, with the copyright stuff cut out, things like that. And I am working on other ways of bringing this information back.
Well,
very
part two of my question is this, and you know, Johnny and Jimmy and I have spoken about this a few times. You know, we love books. You know, EVH books. You know, Chris Gill is working on a new book coming out as well. And you know, have you considered maybe collecting all the information and the research that you've picked up over the years on your video, and even self-publishing that information? Have you thought about that for all the Van Halen fans out there? Because the information, as John said, that you've picked up has been first-hand. No one's done it before, John.
Well, I was trying to be very vague, but now that you mention it and talk about it, yeah, a book is not out of the question. It seems to me a very logical step. And it's not to try to make money, because it wouldn't be a money-making thing.
Sure.
It's because what I've learned with the videos being taken down is I thought they'd be there for as long as I wanted them to be there, for everybody to watch for however long, you know.
Sure.
But a book is something that somebody could buy and have and put on a shelf. Nobody's going to take it. It's not going to disappear. And I think people of our age, we like that tangible thing that we can go and grab and look at and hold in our hand. And when you go to a video channel and it's gone, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I know I follow a lot of things, and similar things have happened where you go to watch and it's just gone, and you kind of have your gut kind of goes, what do I do? What do I do now? Like, it's gone. So a book is definitely something that I've thought about doing, and it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I'd like to compile all that stuff together in a nice little package kind of thing, you know. It's in the works.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Good news. Good to hear.
It's important for like the historical record to have, you know, to have all this information. It's just, you know, I guess, you know, it's been 3 years since he passed away, and it's like, I don't know. And obviously there hasn't been, you know, any movement on anything really in the Van Halen camp. I guess these remasters are going to be coming out. We're going to talk about them, I guess, in a little while, but you know, we don't even know if, you know, maybe Warner Brothers said, hey, Alex, we're doing this, you know, one way or the other, we're going to do it. You know what I mean? Or whatever rights that they had to do it. And you can either participate and sign on and make it special, or we're just going to do it and put out, you know, it's really nothing special on it. We'll talk more about it later. But I mean, I think things need to come out just to set history on the right course, of who this guy was, and
Keep it alive.
right, and to take control of the narrative. You know what I mean? Just to focus on all these positive, great things like, that he did and he was involved with. And one of them would be, how he really changed the way guitars were made. You know what I mean?
Massively.
And going back to that guitar is like, the ground zero guitar for, and he really didn't have any, obviously, woodworking skills or patience. Obviously, he had no patience. He would just take a screwdriver and just chop whatever, just to make it work, which is pretty amazing. You know what I mean? Primitive, but he knew what he knew what he wanted. You know what I mean? And then the fact that you find out that guitar was never properly intonated the whole time he played it, from 77 to 83, whatever, never properly. It wasn't properly, I don't think, until like 87 when Tom Anderson took it apart and plugged the holes and re-drilled them. But that's like mind blowing when you think of all of the music that was the great music and how he would use the fingers. He had such a feel for the guitar that he would just bend and hit the, to make it sound like it was in tune.
It didn't matter to him.
Right. It was just, that's amazing. I mean, we always said that the greats, Jeff Beck did the same thing. His guitars sometimes weren't intonated, but just the way that these guys knew how to manhandle the guitar to make it do what they wanted. But I think
Carpenter blames his tools. Eddie wouldn't blame his tools. He built the tool so he could make the music.
Right. Exactly.
And he didn't care what it looked like or what it sounded or what, how it was made, as long as it did what he wanted it to do.
Yeah, and like you said, it was crazy because those heavy bodies with the light necks. Like I had that the Bumblebee replica, and that Northern Ash. I mean, it's over 8 pounds. You know what I mean? And the neck is like
Wow.
it's like a featherweight thing on the one. I'm like, wow, how did it? And he's just, like we said, he's not a big guy, and lugging around like the Frankenstein, which obviously was a pretty heavy guitar. Also, I think it's pretty amazing that he would run around the way he did. No wonder he needed hips, hip replacement, things like that, I'm sure his knees were shot too, from that, all that. But, it is pretty amazing. And, I guess even the Wolfgang's not really a lightweight guitar. I guess the Kramer 5150 was pretty lightweight as far as that because of the wood. But you have any thoughts on that wood too?
The 5150?
Yeah. Ever give that any thought about the wood on that one?
It's a controversy, right? Is it ash or is it poplar?
Right. Or basswood, like they claim, basswood.
Yeah. When I see the grain on the back, it looks like it's like basswood or poplar. It doesn't look like it's ash to me. But then you get people talking about the grain that's showing on the armrest, the arm contour on the front, and you could still have grain showing even on a tight wood like poplar or basswood. So, I haven't researched the 5150 to the same degree as the Frankie, but, it's like I've heard 2 stories. People have told me that they've held it and it's heavy, and they've held it and it's light. Now, you get somebody's lying, or they don't know, they can't remember properly.
Right.
Or like somebody's heavy and somebody else is light, so.
Yeah, if you play Les Pauls all the time or really heavy guitars and you pick up the 5150, it may seem light to you, but if you play a very light guitar, then it may seem heavy. So it's very hard to say. Right. Unless I were to pick it up myself.
Exactly. Well, get on that one, John, and get back to us.
Yeah. The 5150 is very interesting, though, and one day I would like to really dive into it, but it
would almost be a companion to your Frankenstein, because it really was the culmination of, in a nice package of what he was doing with the Frankenstein, with the single pickup and, just a nice formal version of the Frankenstein.
The factory version, really,
right.
And really the Bumblebee, I think, was his idea of, the Frankie was like the prototype, and then the Bumblebee was the Charvel that he couldn't afford, but yet the Charvel version of his invention. And I think that's really how he looked at it back in 79 and 80 when he loved that guitar so much. And then they screwed him, and like the guitar never existed anymore.
Right.
But the 5150 was definitely a step in that direction, where it was like the production version of what he started.
Right. Did he really not like the Bumblebee, or did he just not like everything associated with it, how they were ripping him off, and that's why he
Well,
didn't like it, you know?
Oh,
Did
I
he
think
like-
he always loved the Bumblebee, but yeah, it was the knife in the back that, you know, anytime that somebody crossed him, it seemed through his
Yeah.
life like that person was just gone, dead to him. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that was it. And
Right.
I can understand, like, they kept selling Bumblebees even when he was saying, "Stop doing this. This is my guitar, my design. Everything about it is mine. How are you making money off of this?" It was, you know, Grover Jackson, right? It wasn't Wayne Charvel. He liked Wayne Charvel, but after he sold the company, things went differently. So it's that's actually where we see the Frankie come back, right? Because he gets rid of the Bumblebee, and then we see the Frankie come back. Until then, I think he really thought of the Frankie as kind of the secondary guitar.
Right.
Well, I think
It really wasn't the iconic guitar yet.
I think it's in Steve Rosen's book where Rosen asks him, you know, which one? Oh, no. It was an interview with Jazz Albrecht where Jazz asks him, is this your main one? And he goes, yeah, the black and yellow is my main one. So that interview was around like 1980. Look, Eddie, he loved that guitar. He wouldn't have played that guitar from 78 to 80 if he hated it, you know. But like, you know, Johnny was saying, you got this, you know, you got the controversy with Charvel.
Yeah.
And you know, I get it too. But man, me being a kid that wanted an Eddie guitar, I'm like, you go, Grover.
Well, it was, you know, you think about that guitar. If you were a 15-year-old kid and you were really into guitar playing, and you went to a Van Halen concert in '79, and you saw Eddie come out with the Bumblebee, what would you think of that guitar? That would be like a space age guitar. The techno, like, you know, what kind of bridges he got? What's that thing where the nut's supposed to go? What is this big chunk of metal he's got up there? You wouldn't understand it. That thing was so far into the future that that was the very first Super Strat.
Yeah,
Sure.
That was it. The very first Floyd on a band like Van Halen to play on stage.
Absolutely.
Changed history, that guitar, more so than the Frankie, really.
Yeah. You could just see where it was headed with that. You know what I mean? It's funny when you look back at the progression of everything now to the Ernie Ball, the Music Man, and to the, you know, the Wolfgang, which I guess is, you know, the one he played to the end of his life, the last, you know, 25 year where, you know, either the PV or the EVH. But I guess that's what he arrived at from the Frankenstein. It's like the alpha and the omega of the you know, of his work all those years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Every little, you know, screw that he turned, an adjustment, and, you know, trying something and getting rid of it. Like, you know, he was constantly changing and evolving. You can imagine the stuff that we didn't even know about. You know, that I imagine in 5150, there's just drawers full of stuff that he just tossed in there. That didn't work. You know? I would love to go through there and, you know, open a drawer and all of a sudden see like the pick guard from 78 just sitting underneath a bunch of screws or something, you know, like, I bet the stuff that he did in there was like a mad scientist, laboratory.
I like that story about Dweezil where he went to 5150 and, you know, was just hanging out, and he's the Rasta is just in some corner, and he's like, yeah, Ed's like, do you want it? Could you imagine, man?
Yeah.
The Rasta is awesome to me because it's two guitars in one. It's the Rasta and it's the Unchained, you know. So
Yeah,
the circle.
there's a lot of history in that one as well.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention about the Bumblebee is that, like, you know, up until maybe like the invention of this internet, I think we all thought that thing was kind of like the first time we saw it was on the back cover of Van Halen 2. But, you know, when was it? A couple of years ago, 5 years ago, those pictures surfaced from like London or something where he's playing it on the Van Halen 1 tour towards the end.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we were always led to believe that guitar didn't exist until the second album.
Right. That's what I mean. Perfect. Yeah.
Literally, it goes back really, I think, to late '77 when Eddie walked into Charvel, because now he had the money from Warner Brothers, right, to improve his gear for the road. So that's when he modded the Shark guitar. And I think that's when he went into Charvel with the Frankie and said, I want you to build this, but, you know, you guys build that. Because, you know, he didn't think of himself as a master builder. He looked to those guys. That's where he constantly went to seek information and get information from those guys, pick their brains all the time. So that's where he went. And that would have been late '77. It could have been '78. They were on the road. And then he picked the guitar up at the Charvel facility from Carl Sandoval when the tour came back around Anaheim. So that was June, I think. June, I can't remember the exact date, but in '78, and then played the Bumblebee in Europe later on, a few months or weeks later.
Awesome.
And we know it's '78 because of the stage clothes, right? It's obviously,
and like the backdrop and the drums and all that. Yeah.
But you know, if you listen to Grover Jackson explain it, the guitar made its appearance the day they did the photo shoot for the second album, which we know is absolutely wrong.
Yes, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
So Johnny, you mentioned something really, really interesting before about the Bumblebee and this thing on the neck and this big metal thing on the body. You know, the advent of the Floyd Rose. So, guys, can we just spend a couple of minutes, because I don't think I know other shows have spoken about the Floyd Rose and the importance of it, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about the Floyd Rose and how important that was to Eddie when it became available to him. Probably more important, I think, than wood for a guitar and even pickups. I think for a long time. Can you share some thoughts, Johnny? And I'd love to hear what John and Jimmy have to say about that.
Definitely. I think that was, more so than wood types or neck shapes or anything like that. That gave him total range to dive bomb and do all his tricks without having to go through all those little tricks of winding the strings and, you know, oiling the nut. It ended all that for him. You could imagine what a relief it was to have this thing. It was like magic. I mean, we all know what a Floyd is like. You know, I tell people that have problems with them, I say, if it's not set up properly, you're going to have problems. But if it's set up properly and maintained properly, it's bulletproof. And I've got guitars that I haven't played for a while with a Floyd, and you pick them up months later and you strum them, and it's exactly, you know, it's in tune. You dive bomb, it's in tune. Like this must have been, and it, like, we're used to it, but for Eddie to go through all those tuning problems and actually, you know, conquer them. I mean, he was doing it way better than even Hendrix. You know, how many bootlegs have we heard of Hendrix where he's just out of tune, right? He couldn't do it.
Yeah, good point.
But then Eddie gets the Floyd Rose. Oh, like the world must have changed for him. And I think that's in '79, there was a huge amount of change with the Floyd going into that Bumblebee guitar. You can see it, how much he played that thing for the rest of the '79 tour. And then '80, he was playing it, you know, pretty much exclusively. So very important. Yes, the Floyd.
For me, if I can jump in for a second, I love the Floyd. I mean, I'd say the Floyd is probably the single greatest invention for a guitar, next to like the tuner, like, you know, like an automatic tuner, right? Because that changed things too. But I remember when I got my first Floyd. I think, you know, a lot of people I see on some, you know, guitar boards or whatever that, you know, people don't like the Floyd or they have problems with the Floyd. I think a lot of it is that, you know, none of my Floyds float. I don't care about like pulling up on it, right? And Eddie's didn't float, right? And so I think a lot of the problems with that is that, like, when I was a kid, I bought my very first guitar with the Floyd. It was a Kramer Beretta.
Wow.
And it was, and I remember, you know, I was at the store and the guy who's explaining the Floyd to me is telling me how to tune it, because it's floating, right? So you got to keep it in balance, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm like 18 years old, right? So I'm just like, oh my God, I got the Beretta finally, right? I'm like, right? I'm like, the guy's like, it's almost like Charlie Brown, you know what I mean? And I'm not paying attention. All
You
right.
just want to go home and like.
Yeah, I just want to go home and rip. Okay, so I'm ripping for a little bit, whatever. I mean, playing wasn't that good. Um, but this is like this is about 1987, around that time, right? And I break a string, and I go to restring it, and my Floyd is like straight up, right? And whatever I do, I can't get it to work, right? And there's no internet or anything like that. There's no real, I can maybe bring it back to the guitar place, right? But then one night, like just in the middle of the night, and this is why I think you never really forget anything. You just need something to trigger it. Just in the middle of the night, it hit me. Like I wasn't paying attention to this guy, but it hit me that I have to do it string by string, right? Because I was tuning it like I would tune, I was changing the strings like Les Paul, right?
Yeah.
But you do it like the outer strings and work your way in or whatever, or string by string, but make sure everything's tuned up. Anyway, I got it floating. But my point is that like a lot of people have trouble with these Floyds because maybe they don't know about the floating. I can change strings in like 5 minutes. It's flush to the body. Let alone that there's nothing sexier than a Floyd, right? And on a guitar.
It's
Come
pretty
on.
cool.
They're really cool looking. I mean, for what were the alternatives? You had the Kaler. I mean, didn't look that cool, right? And like the Rockinger or whatever that trim was, and then you had like the basic trims, but that didn't stay in tune. But and then let alone the design of the double locking thing is genius.
It's simple.
It's genius.
It's
Yeah, it's
simple
simple
and
and it's genius. Like so I'm a huge fan of the Floyd, man, and like Floyd Rose himself, that man. I mean, legend. Come on, and like we talk about Floyd Rose as like their items, like a Xerox machine or something, right? Yep. But it's the actual guy's name,
it's a guy. He was smart. He didn't call it the whammy mobile.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, he didn't call it the whammy or whatever. Yeah. But no, just to recap, huge fan of the Floyds, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. But if I think a lot of the problem is that is floating. If you just have it flush to the body, you can just tune it up.
Well, I like floating, and I have flush to the body. It depends on the guitar that I have it in, but yeah, you really have to have the concept of what's happening, like you say, with the balance. And if you get the balance out of whack, it's not going to work for you. Mm-hmm. So with floating, you can't make it like it you have to go with the stiffness that it wants to have, like your strings, and but flush to the body. If you want to pack in the springs on the back to make it super stiff, mm-hmm. It's more versatile. And I think that's what Eddie probably liked, because you break a string, it still stays in tune if you got enough springs and tension on it, pulling it back. But I like both.
Both. I had a Charvel that came floating, so I left it floating. But then when I changed the string, it just triggered again. Oh yeah, I got to do it like this, and then it's a balance between like the stress from the strings and the springs in the back. So you got to do like it's almost like a little ballet. You got to make it. You can just get the balance right.
Yeah, and it's a bit tricky because you tune your strings, and then you notice the bridge is going forward a little bit. So you tighten your springs, and then everything's out of whack again. You gotta start all over again. But each time you do it, you're getting closer and closer and closer. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun though. It's worth it to me.
Oh no, I no bigger fan of Floyd's than me.
You can make cartoon sounds on it,
Yeah, man. It's great.
I just think the Floyd was like, for what he didn't have in technical ability and designing ability, he did align himself with the right people, or got put in touch with them. And that goes all the way from the very beginning to the very end. Like, you got to give a shout out to Jim DeCola, who, the two graphite rods in the neck of the Wolfgang, that's a great idea, and he said even pitched the stainless steel frets to Eddie too. And Eddie said no at the time. And then Fender, when they did it, they're using them obviously now. So, Jim basically designed that guitar to what Eddie wanted, including the pickups and everything like that. But, the Floyd was really the first step along the way for that. I think Eddie always had in mind having the company being able to mass produce his guitar, but without having to oil or put graphite in the nut or whatever like that, just like what the Floyd ultimately became. I think that was his vision to have a super strat, with the humbucker in it and a complete production model guitar. And the funny thing is, I think he was trying to realize that as early as when the Bumblebee was, the inception or conception of the Bumblebee. I think that was his idea, but for some reason it kept falling short. Even when he signed on with Kramer, it was almost like, a half-ass kind of thing, because there was never a Kramer Eddie Van Halen model. I don't know if he just never felt comfortable with them, or just didn't want to pursue it. It really took until he went with Music Man that he wanted a signature, that it progressed to that level. Because I always wondered why with Kramer, it was like, you got the biggest guy in the world right now. It's just like, if I were Kramer and, instead of, snorting, the profits up their noses or whatever they did, maybe they should have said, man, we're going to do an EVH signature model, which they never.
I think I did hear this story. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did hear this story, and I think it came from David Nesdahl, right? Rest in peace. And that during the '86 tour, he had that stable of pointy Kramers that all kind of looked the same.
Yep.
He told me a story. I don't know how true it is. I'm just reiterating. He told me the story that those were going to be Kramer, Eddie Van Halen models, and he was testing them.
Wow.
All right. You see the picture. There's like 6 of them. They all kind of look exactly the same. Right. Maybe the striping is a little off, but we see, they were used as a backup. You can tell it because the headstock's a lot pointier, like the Kramer.
Yeah, and why did he have so many as backups? That's weird to me.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting that you say that.
So, but it fell up. No, I don't know. He said it fell apart. I don't know how true this. He said that it fell apart and it never came to fruition because Eddie told them that he wanted them to be beat up looking, and Kramer was like, "Who would want that?"
Everybody.
Brand new guitar.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Me.
Right? So, but I don't know how true that is, but it seems like it's a relative. It could be a possibility. I mean, he had like 6 or 8 of those in a row there.
Wow.
Yeah. Nerd Allen said the anti-sellout vibe was strong in the '80s. I'm sure that definitely played into the things too. Maybe he wanted to remain cool, and maybe he didn't want to get more like corporate at that point. But obviously, he worked to that point, and then up at the end with the EVH, where he had his own brand of products. I think that was probably his goal from maybe early on. He had that, vision. Maybe it just didn't feel right with Kramer at the time, but that's kind of interesting. And I'm wondering if you went with like the point just so there wouldn't be any kind of trademark issues. I don't know who owned the rights at the time to that. If Gibson owned it, I know Gibson lost or didn't own the trademark to that and reacquired it, 10 or 12 years ago, apparently. But that's why I don't think there's going to ever be a 5150 exact replica, like a Frankenstein deal, like they did, because I don't think Gibson is willing to share any profits with, Gibson. A lot of people say, oh yeah, it's in the works. It's been in the works for years. Gibson and Fender are going to get together. No, they're not, because Gibson, their president, that guy Cesar, wasn't he a hedge fund manager or something like that? He doesn't care about guitar. He might try to act like he does. They just care about profits. You know what I mean? That's the name of the game nowadays. And I don't think they're going to do anything out of goodwill really for Fender or whatever like that. So I just don't think you're going to see a exact replica of that. And I believe that headstock, the trademark, was possible for Eddie to have gotten it, from the story I was told. I don't know if the person wants me to repeat it, but they had the rights to it. And then they said, hey, you going to do anything with the 5150? And Eddie was kind of like, nah. And this is like maybe 10 or 12 years ago. Nah, we're not going to do anything. So that person sold the rights to Gibson, who has them now. And now obviously where we are now, everybody is crying out for a 5150 replica. But, you know, a lot of people say the wood was tested and all this. I don't believe any of that, to be honest with you. I just think it's great mythology, but I personally don't think it really happened. You know, I think even if it wasn't basswood, Eddie liked basswood. All his guitars are basswood. They're going to say it's basswood, even if it wasn't. Right. And they're going to make their guitars out of basswood. I just think that's, you know, maybe it's the company line, but that's what he liked. He wound up liking, and I think that's the way they would roll with that, to be honest with you, you know? So, but that's just
I don't think any company is really interested in doing exact copies. You know, I think for a production aspect, it's really difficult. And if they can get it close enough, they're not going to sell to you and me. Well, like, you know, guys like me who can build the guitar, they're going to sell to people who don't build guitars, but still want them. And it's close enough for those guys. That's pretty much, I think, what they're thinking.
I think you're
Guitar
right.
companies will tell you anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we're never going to get to play the real Peter Green, you know, the Greenie Les Paul. So how are we ever going to know? We're never going to get to play the Frankenstein, you know, like regular guys like us, or the Kramer 5150. Never. So they could say it's as heavy or light or, you know, whatever they want, pretty much, because we're never.
They're selling a lot of what's the one basswood body there? They're selling a lot of those.
Yeah,
nobody seems to mind.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really look, you know, in my opinion, I don't think they look very nice with the way they age them and everything. You know, the basswood ones from Mexico. There, I don't know. It's like to mass produce something and make it perfect costs money.
Oh yeah,
sure.
You know, I'm actually impressed with what they were able to do. They're getting $2,000 for those guitars. Just even the level that it is at with those different colors on there, it's like that they were able to pull it off and make people happy. It's got a nice wide neck, similar, I guess, to what the real one has. Flat, you know, fingerboard. It's the one I have. A lot of people say it's very light because it's basswood, but the one I have is actually really heavy. I'm like shocked. I'm like, everybody's saying it's so light. I got one, and it's heavy, believe it or not. So I don't, you know, the piece of wood that I got is a heavy one, but I don't know. But
vary, you know. Just like mahogany can vary from, you know, it could be almost heavy to really very light.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so you never know. But like you said, you know, we're not going to play it, so it doesn't really matter. And, you know, we'll never know, but, you know.
It's marketing, you know, they're selling a product. It's not, you know, they're not trying to make examples of this artifact that we're all interested in.
Well, you can just look at like that, you know, Conks knows about this, and my pet peeve with this is, you know, they're not like, you know, Johnny was saying, they're not looking to do an exact replica because they're putting the friggin' wheel, you know, the wheel adjust at the bottom. That just looks ridiculous to me. But
Jimmy always says it's a great invention. It's an excellent thing, but just not on these guitar. Like
that wheel adjust thing is great. I got him on my Ernie Balls. It is a great invention. Every guitar can have that after like 1999.
Exactly.
But it just ruins the illusion for me, you know. But
you're right. Yeah, it looks odd to me as well. Yeah, my eye goes straight to that every time I see one. And I like, what? Okay, yeah, it's a great invention, but it doesn't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a question for you guys.
Hot rods, like, oh, hey, you know, it fits great, you know, but it looks like crap. But
I've got a question for you guys. So you know when EVH came out with the 5150, and obviously the Frankie guitar, what kind of units do you think they shipped? Because you know you've got guys like me who were never going to build a guitar. You know, and guys obviously who wanted the Frankie. What would have had to have been a huge seller for Fender and EVH bringing out those guitars? So it would have been phenomenal units they shipped.
Yeah, must have been. I couldn't tell you, but I mean,
part of me, you know, like
money, I'm sure.
Part of me thinks that like they shipped a ton, but I also feel like they kind of missed the boat on this because, like, you know, I don't know, 1987 Jimmy Vombus would have killed his parents for like, you know, a Van Halen replica guitar, but you know, 55-year-old Jimmy Vombus, there's all these other different avenues he can get a great, more realistic replica. But again, you know, people like you know, Andrew was saying, there's people there that don't know how to get like if they maybe they don't even want an exact replica. Me, I've always wanted an exact replica. The exact is a little, sketchy because like wood doesn't bother me. Like it could be whatever, I love Northern Ash. So, if I had a 5150, I'd build that out of Northern Ash. I don't care. I want the weight. But it's just like, it's targeted to people like Andrew was saying that don't have the avenue to go to some people that to the group of gang, that we all know, and have like something custom made for them or whatever, So it's, so I kind of like set the fence. I'm sure they're selling a ton of them, and like the price point's not bad,
Well, Nude Halen's in here. Maybe Nude Halen might know how many units that they've been shipping because, he's involved with them. Sorry for interrupting, Johnny.
No, I was just going to say, now they're coming out with these. You've seen the Frankie, they're all just painted red. And we've seen fans build those for the last 15 years.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. I had a red and a white one back in 2001 from Jerry Leica. Ask him.
I kind of understand it because there's so many guys that are Eddie fans.
Oh no, I understand.
They love the guitar. They just don't want the stripes on. You know what I mean? But like you said, John, for 15 years, guys were doing it. What's that company, Palermo or whatever they are?
Yeah.
They were doing that for like years too. It's amazing. But Nerd Halen made a good comment. They should make a cap cover for the wheel. I thought of that. I was talking to Stofko about that, about getting a small veneer, like a maple veneer, and trying to figure out a way to mount that. I mean, they could put it in an accessory kit with the welded, screws, and they could sell something like that for the, and the reflectors and all that. You can get a kit for your guitar and do whatever you want with it. But
includes a cap cover.
We have all these great ideas tonight. The Wolfgang XL, the cover for the
cap cover.
Someone's watching and it'll happen.
Yeah. Right. Let's see. It should, because certain, guys, like I'm telling you, the Wolfgang thing, you're like 6'4", it's like a banjo on you, you know what I mean? So they should make an XL. But anyway.
Are you playing your kid's guitar there?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that because on the channel a few months ago we interviewed a guy called Dave Spector, who's a blues guy based in the States. He's a big guy, 6'4", and he was telling us live that he'd love to have played a Les Paul. That's what he wanted, but he just looked like an idiot standing there on stage with this Les Paul. So he had no choice to go to an electric Spanish, style Epiphone or Gibson because, it looked in proportion. So, guys have been thinking about this for a long, long time, looking good in the photos and on stage is important.
I don't think it's like looking good. You don't want to look stupid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Same. Yeah. We're splitting hairs. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. But if you're over like 5'11" or 6 foot, it just doesn't cut it. You know what I mean? It looks like it kind of starts to look funny at that.
Forget about those M4s too, man.
What's that?
Forget about those M4s if you're.
That's like the Washburn M4. Nuno's that's even smaller. That thing is really tiny. So.
Yeah, it's very noticeable on a tall guy for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, let's just jump into the chat and say hello to everybody before we forget here.
Sure.
We had Johnny Heartbreaker, the John at the far end of the alphabet, John ZD351, Nerd Halen. We got Jimmy Ray Hawkins, Johnny Heartbreaker, Bob Dobalina, Holly Lewis, Charles Green. Who else do we have? Jimmy Ray. Let's see. Andy Carson. Fruitcake Tony. Let's see if that's everybody. Tim Thomas. Hey, Tim. Let's see. I think that might be everybody. Let me just Lean Van Halen.
Yeah.
Quentin James. Let's see. Kurt was in here, I guess, right? Let's see. I think that might be everyone.
Fantastic.
We got a lot of comments, so let me just scrolling through.
I'm glad.
Nightbot, of course.
Yeah. There's a good comment here that Caleb has made too about Wolfgang's SA 126, obviously, because before the advent of that guitar, he was playing electric Spanish style guitars as well. So it'll be interesting to see that guitar when it hits the market, and what kind of reception that will get, because electric Spanish guitars are always, Johnny, always going to be in fashion, aren't they? We're always going to be in style.
Absolutely. Classic. They've done a good job on that, I got to say.
I'm not a huge fan of the SA 126, but I'll tell you, I do like that light pink one that he plays, where it's just pink enough. You know what I mean? It's like, it looks white, but it's pink a little bit. Yeah. I dig that color. That's a great color.
Not a big fan of that green.
Yeah.
Like khaki green. I don't know. But the pink is better.
I think Nerd Halen Caleb is 100% right about that. That came out of Wolfgang just probably not feeling comfortable with the Wolfgang, the guitar. I mean, there was a photo shoot of him holding the ivory one from the and People magazine or whatever it was, and it looked literally like a little kid's guitar toy on him there. And he was playing the Gibson, the ES 335 or whatever, and I guess it's a competing company to his father's company, so it only makes sense that they should just design what they did, which is cool. And a lot of people are still waiting for it to come out. I'm assuming NAMM in January.
Gotta be
pop up at that point. I mean, it's grown on me a lot. At first, I really didn't like it, but he was on like the Today Show here in the United States, which is a big morning, the biggest morning show, and he performed last week, and it just looked really, really nice on there. So, and
I'll tell you what, I might be interested if it has a Floyd. Get me one with Floyd.
I don't know. Maybe it might be an option on it, but I tell you what, it sounded incredible. He's using the 50-watt 5153. I mean, it's that modern type of sound. It's not the plexi sound or whatever like that. But for that modern type of sound, it just sounds like ear candy. You know what I mean? It's like, I love the way it sounds, like loud, and it sounded amazing live on the Today Show also. So, and I'm sure some of that has to do with the guitar itself. You know what I mean? There's special pickups in it also, but I mean, we'll stay tuned for that. But that's a good point. That's why that guitar probably came about, is because you wanted something bigger that you could hide behind a little bit. I even have you guys know, they have Gretsch guitars. I love that big Gretsch in front of you. You know what I mean? It's just you feel a little safer when you have that in front of you.
Yeah.
I love how
well, the fact is, Don, we got to call it as it is. Wolfgang's a big guy, so I get it. I get why he would want to have a guitar that suits him. But I think it'll be a great guitar. I reckon. I think a lot of people that aren't necessarily playing modern music are going to orientate towards that guitar, because we've had the ES guitars since the early 60s. We've had nothing really giving it a run for the money. That classic design has, been around for a long time. So if Wolfgang goes to NAMM and pushes it, great.
I got a question, though. Like, what's the story with those F holes? Are they full F holes? Like it's going to feed back, or are they
good
just
point? If he's got a solid block of timber running through it, it won't be feeding back.
Wow.
I'm sure they probably do.
Be hollow.
And if you notice, they're in the shape of an E. Actually, do you notice that?
Yeah. It'll definitely be a solid block, because a casino, I've got a casino here, and you can have your amp on 4, and it's going to feed back.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess they feel like they've addressed the like we're saying, the XL by this guitar. You know what I mean? But it is still an issue, and there's still a lot of Eddie fans out there would love to play his model guitar. So I really think that they should kind of investigate. I know that the neck sits deeper into the body on this guitar. That's why it looks like, if you stand it next to a Strat, the Strat is like like that much longer than this, because the neck is so far into the body here. With
John, Why don't you grab your jigsaw, grab some MDF over the next couple of weeks, and cut out a proportion and model it for us and see what, I'll be intrigued to see.
I'll do it on a piece of cardboard, okay?
Okay.
I'll blow it up on a copy machine a little bit bigger, and then I'll mail it to you or something. And whoever's over 6 feet tall, and then stand there and model it for us. All right?
Yeah.
Give them some ideas. EVH.
Hey guys, I'm just mindful of where we are with the time. I'm going to change the subject just a little bit, folks. Obviously, we can't do anything on this channel without talking about the news that came available to us during the week about the new remastered Sammy Hagar era albums. For a long time on this channel, guys, we've been pushing, release the vaults, open the vaults, and, give us something new from the Van Halen camp. Johnny, because you're a guest on the show, we're going to give you first option, first chance, and giving us your opinions on that package on the news, if you want to share it with us.
It's everything good. I mean, how much more can I say? I mean, give us more. You can't give us too much. Like you mentioned the vault. I've said from the beginning, start at tape 1 and release that. Go to tape 2 and release that. I'll buy them all. Mm-hmm. So having all that stuff come out is just great. It's gonna stay around. It's gonna be relevant, and maybe new fans will hear it and appreciate it.
Johnny, what's your opinion on the remastered box set?
It was necessary. You guys all know how I feel about that. It's like I feel like Eddie and Alex, the reason they just squashed that for the last 20 years after even the Roth ones came out was because of their anger towards Hagar. And I believe that they felt that he was using them for all his success with even his booze and all this. Using the Van Halen name is what helped him achieve all of this, where they weren't involved monetarily. They didn't get anything out of it, and that he was just continuing to use the Van Halen name. And they didn't want to let him make another cent off the Van Halen name by releasing these remasters, where he would obviously make a lot of money off it. And I think it was kind of a, right now, hey, we don't need the money right now. So it's just like, we're going to make this go as long as possible because we really don't care. You know what I mean? I really believe that was a big part of it. And I almost believe that, if I'm to hypothesize, that Warner Brothers obviously was, champion at the bit to do this for a long time. And I think now they said, Alex, we're going to do this, one way or the other, either if you're on board or if you're not. I mean, I guess they have some rights to do this, and maybe he agreed. Maybe, they said, hey, listen, we'll get Don Landy involved. If that, maybe he agreed to do it with that because he knew ultimately he couldn't stop it forever. So maybe, but, I also feel that in the last, since the 2000s started, that, Van Halen, the organization, had some contempt for the fans. I do believe that because, you see bands like Metallica and they just like the fans are just flooded with, product and things like that fans really love. And we get nothing as Van Halen fans. Even on this, there's not, Sammy had mentioned that there was a finished song, from the Twister soundtrack called Between Us Two. And he said that it's going to be released. It's going to wind up. Well, here we go. They're dropping all of these as one box set. And there's not one new. They're putting Baluchitherium because it wasn't on the LP version. That's considered a rarity, even though it was on the CD. And we all know it because
and nobody bought LPs back then, so everybody's got the CD.
Exactly. I didn't even realize it. It's so so they're considering that a rarity on the rarity album. It's like they're come on, there had to be something you could throw in because I would pay for the price of the box set just for the one new song. You know what I mean? Just give us something. You know what I mean?
Can I jump in, John? Can I jump in? But because I know it's Jimmy's turn, but I just want to add my little point to what you're saying there. If you look at what other artists have done with their digital re-releases, so we've got this box set coming out, and when they put this box set on Spotify and Apple Music or whatever, they have to have a lead single. They have to have something to push the new digital banked music. I reckon that's when you're going to get that new release. It'll be, it won't be on the albums, but it will be digital.
I mean, they do have a single out from this box set. I don't know if you noticed. They did release a single, and it's Humans Being, just the remastered version of Humans. It's the only one on Apple Music you can go, and the only one that is like in bold color. Everything else is grayed out, the songs. That's the only one. And you listen to it, and yeah, like everything that's remastered nowadays sounds louder.
Sure.
It definitely sounds louder. Might have a little more clarity. The bass seemed a little bit punchier. Just maybe they EQ'd it a little bit more. But other than that, that's all it was. So it's so I don't know. Like I said, I have all these hypotheses about this whole project and Alex's involvement. Or maybe whatever, just my own opinion. But I really think that they could have given us something. Something.
It'll come. It'll come digitally.
I hope you're right.
Hope so.
Jimmy.
Me. Okay. I got roasted a couple of days ago on
I know.
on some stuff. That's fine. That's
Again?
fine. It's fine. Because this is the truth. The truth is like, okay, Johnny B, he just mentioned that, release everything at 5150. All about that. Perfect, right?
Sure.
We're not getting any. This is nothing new. I really don't care about whether it's Van Halen or anybody. I don't buy into this remastered thing. I don't feel like remastered. Now they released a remixed Dio Holy Diver. Yeah, that's interesting to me.
Sure.
You'll hear some other stuff in there, right? Remastered doesn't do anything for me. And we already, I kind of, part of me felt bad because, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. If you want to buy this, buy it, right? But it's stuff we already have. Like, what don't we have? We already have all this, and if you want to get it for a remaster doesn't mean that you're going to hear better bass and OU812, right? Anyway, so now the flip side of that is that at least they're doing something.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm grateful that they're doing something. I don't think, I love the idea, Andrew, that you just mentioned about releasing, that track digitally. I don't think it's going to happen. These guys, they don't think like that. But I do like the idea that something's getting done, but give me something I don't have, man. I would rather have them release, I don't know, if it's a Sammy era thing, have them release like a show live that I don't have. You know what I mean?
Are you even a little bit interested in hearing the new remixed or remastered version of OU812?
Great point. Okay, here's my thing about that. Right, is like my brain is used to hearing whatever it is, OU812, 5150, the way it is. Right.
Sure.
So, and that's why, like, if they were going to remix it, I'd have both versions. The remix and the original. I feel no need to listen to anything remastered. I'm not an audiophile. I honestly don't have the best ear. Okay.
Look, I agree with you, but I'm going to tell you something. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been ranking the new definitive 24 Nights, Jimmy. And I know the originals like the back of my hand, sonically through my ears. But I have to tell you, what they've done with this repackaging is remarkable. Jimmy.
So you can hear a difference. Can you hear?
Yes.
Stuff? You can hear.
Yes, brother.
Okay. But like I said, me, I don't know if I have the best ear. Okay, so like I would have to A/B. Like I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna just sit there and A/B mine, original versus remastered. Okay, maybe the other thing is that the remastered it might be a little bit louder, so that kind of throws you
Sure.
off. Is it just louder?
It will be.
Or are you hearing different things? I don't know. But the bottom line is, if you want to buy it, by all means. My buddy asked me today. He's like, Vom, you're gonna buy this remastered stuff? I go, hell no. But
I agree with you, Jimmy.
Thank you. But like Johnny said, if you're gonna release something, I don't care what quality it is, release it, whatever it is. You know.
Well, that's why I said,
I'll buy it.
Right. I said, if Sammy's got that version of that on a cassette somewhere, well, just let it leak out to the internet. We don't care.
Yeah.
Look at all the bootlegs we had from the early days. We don't care. We just want to hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure Gary Cherone feels the same way about the second album that he did with them, because it would go a long way in, having people change their opinions about Gary Cherone's tenure in Van Halen, because I did hear a song from that second album. I'm sure other people have heard it too. It was pretty damn good. I mean, it had a real producer. I think it was Patrick Leonard, and the sound sonically, it just sounded amazing. There was a acoustic guitar and an electric guitar. Eddie sounded great. Gary sounded like he was in the band for a while, that they were like familiar with each other. It wasn't like uncomfortable new guy trying to sing out of his range to make Eddie happy like he did on that first album. I mean, it was like, wow, this is like really, it wasn't overly commercial. It was on the longer side, about 5 minutes long, but I think everybody would appreciate it. And then they would have said, wow, this is what could have been with Gary had he been given more of a chance. So, I mean, and I'm sure Gary would like, that to at some point to leak out if they're not going to, he won't say it, but I just think, to like for a little redemption and say, hey, listen, guy, obviously people listen to that new Extreme album and it's, it was flying up the charts. Everybody loves it. And he sounds great on it for a 60-year-old guy, but I think that, it would, I think he would feel a little bit better if, that would leak out at some point and people would say, wow, you know what? I never really, I just shut the door on that album or Gary Cherone because of that album. But, I think this would go a long way for changing people's opinion. But at some point, it's just got to leak out. You know what I'm saying? Because if they're not going to do it, which I don't think they are, and as far as OU812, I don't, we're all hoping that they're going to go in and do something, which they really can't do anything except like re-EQ it or something like that, But even that, they can't do too much of that because it's going to affect other things, you know what I mean? Other things on that frequency, really. So I don't think, and plus just judging from their, what I call contempt for the fans, I don't think they care. I think you're going to get it and you're going to like it and you're not going to get any new song. And that's it. That's just too bad because this is what you're getting. You know what I mean? I think that's it.
You know what? I was more interested in, because Conks and Les and I were talking about Mitch Malloy before we got on here, but like that Mitch Malloy song came out. I was more interested in that than I am with these remix. At least that's something new. I was like, oh, this is pretty good. It's it's pretty good. Van Halen.
I completely agree with that part of it, but I mean, if you listen to that guy, I'm sorry, folks.
No, I get that. I'm not
myself in trouble, but
we're not gonna go in that. I don't want any emails from Mitch Malloy.
Yeah, no, Mitch has got an ego. Let's put it that way. He's got a big ego about, and to me, he was taking shots at Gary Cherone and his version that leaked out about the song. So it was fair game for me to respond, and he didn't like what I had to say, and.
But anyway, yeah, that at least that's something. My thing is like, at least that's something new that we hadn't heard.
Right.
I mean, right. I love those albums. I love 5150. I love OU812. I don't know. I just don't feel the need to. And how much is this? $300 or something?
No, I don't. I think it's like $50, Jimmy. I think it's like $50 or $60.
Wow,
I'm honest.
really?
Yeah.
What?
I swear to God. I think somebody said. Anybody in the chat know about that? Did they pre-order it? I thought it was only like $60 for the CDs or something. I said they weren't gouging, from what I understand. So I might be wrong.
Really?
Yeah. So you might buy it, Jimmy.
No, I still wouldn't buy it. But
I agree with you, Jimmy. Like, I'm
it's
at
going to
an
be on
age
Apple
where
Music anyway, so you don't have to buy it if you don't want
making these albums sound better with my ears is useless. It's like,
yeah,
have they come out with better TVs? Like, you've surpassed my expectation with a high def TV 10 years ago. You're not going to impress me anymore. And same with high fidelity. You should have done that back 20, 30 years ago when I really would have appreciated it. But yeah, something different would be nice. Something we haven't heard before.
you're used to hearing these songs in some way, you know, and it would be a kick to hear maybe, you know, OU812 with more Mikey in the mix or something, but that's a mix. That's not a remaster.
Right.
Anyway.
Which is what we want them to do. Anyway, Andy says in the chat, $64 for the CD set. And Holly says the vinyl set is like 125. So it's not breaking the bank, you know, if you want
okay, I gotta give them that.
Which is good.
They're still not going to get my $64, but I gotta give them some credit for not gouging. I thought it was like $300.
Yeah,
I paid more for that for the original ones, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You probably did, right? I think that the purists, like for the purists, like audiophiles, they hate the remastering of albums because they hate it being made so loud. And I'm sure Don Landy is one of those purists that does not really like it, but he's. Thank you, Caleb. I didn't want to say it on here, but everybody refer to Caleb's comment, and that's 100%.
We're not going to say
that one. But the audiophiles, and I'm sure Don Landy is one of them, is probably does not like these loud remasters of albums. A lot of subtleties are lost, like, you know, like a Steely Dan freak fanatic would not probably particularly like. They'd rather listen to the originals because there's so many subtleties on there that, you know. But the reason that I kind of like it is because I'm going deaf, and I want, when I get by Van Halen on, like, you know, random in the car or something like that to play, when you hear something like off of the remixers with Roth, like Panama, and then it goes to like you know, Love Walks In or something, it's like half the volume of that. You got to turn you got to keep turning it up, and then when the next song comes back on, which is a Roth era remaster, and it's blowing your, you know, you got to turn it down. And it's like, so simply for that, I want the remasters. But
Wow.
Yeah. For me though, like, just to put a button on this, like I get most of my, like, I have Apple Music. I get most of my music. I don't really have I used to have a stereo thing when I was a kid or whatever, and I don't really have. I'm not an audiophile. I respect that, man. I wish I was. I just listen to my music. Like if maybe I'll stream it to like a speaker or in my car or something, and
yeah,
it's good enough.
I'm kind of the same way. I don't have a big stereo anymore. You ever listen to like Spotify and you just like random stuff and you hear an old song that you haven't heard and you swear it's not the same mix? You'll hear like a tambourine or a hi-hat and you're like, that's not the way the original was. And you realize that it's probably a remix that they got somewhere. Spotify is weird that way. It's not going to always be the one on the album or the one that you remember.
Oh, wow.
You know what?
Sometimes the ending will be completely different because it's a remix or it's a whatever that somebody did. But it freaks you out a little bit because you start hearing these things like, I don't remember bongos.
Yeah. This sounds like it, but not exact. Yeah.
There's an app out there and it's called I'm trying to think of the name of it. I just had it a minute ago. I can't remember it right now. I'll remember it in a minute. But it's so you're able to basically go on YouTube and it basically kind of separates some of the tracks out into like stems, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So I took like AFU, which I love from OU812. It might be my favorite song on that whole album. And I got the bass track. Some of them is bleed on some of them and stuff like that. But you can I dumped it into Logic as individual tracks. And then I kind of remixed it with that bass track just higher. Really? And I remember playing it for like Joe Suma, and he was just like, the bass behind the guitar solo is actually really cool. I mean, I always knew it because I would follow it. If you listen closely, you could hear it. But I mixed it loud enough that you could hear it. And it's like, he was like, I never knew that that's what was going on with the bass. I mean, he's like, he's playing a lot of notes in there going on in there. It just sounds really cool. But I think that's why we all really would like a remix of OU812. I don't think we're going to get it because I think out of all of the albums, even done at 5150, that one suffered the most because they used the acoustic drums. They only had the one room and they couldn't get that ambient sound that, that Alex, I think he needed that for his snare. I think, the overheads were an important part in that, that signature snare sound too. And they really couldn't, capture it on there. They tried. I think there's plate reverb and stuff like there on there. And the guitar, I think everybody said the head was fading, the plexi on that album. I don't know if it was that or maybe because it was in a closet, with the one SM57 in the closet. It just didn't, and there was Plate on that one too. It just didn't sound as good. It's just not a good recorded album. Whereas like 1984 was recorded in that same tiny small studio, but the Simmons kick drums and the rototoms were like ingenious way of doing that, because they were able, those Simmons kick drums sounded phenomenal, and it's almost an iconic Alex drum sound. Hot for Teacher. People know as soon as they hear that kick. A lot of people are saying that it's a sample of a car or a motorcycle, and which it wasn't. If you know Simmons drums, that's the kick drums on it. But they were able to, they were able to control it. And the rototoms just sound great no matter what. Those things are incredible. And he had his real snare on there, but like on the real songs that they really worked on with Drop Dead Legs and I'll Wait, you can really hear the best sounding Alex snares, and it was that same small studio, but when he went to all acoustic drums, they just couldn't make it happen. I Know You 812. And then just like I always say, 1988 was the year of no bass. Look at Metallica and Justice for All. You don't hear any bass on that album either. So, but that's going to be the thing. When everybody gets to hear this, they're going to go to OU 812 first, and there's going to be still no bass probably. It'll be just louder with no bass,
Well, I want to back up what Jimmy said. I'm not an audiophile either, and I've worked and I've associated with people over the years who are all about positioning the couch on the right angles. With I'm happy just to listen to anything. But I will say this though, in relation to the upcoming remastered remixes. Since we've been doing the tracks here on the channel, I've been fortunate enough to listen to some remastered albums over the years that sonically are different from the classic albums, and that kind of excites me because I'll give you one example. No Alibis on the definitive 24 Nights. You can hear clearly now Clapton rip that bottom E string. You can hear Nathan East's bass passing notes that you couldn't hear before. So I think that adds something to the whole experience. The Layla album, when that came out a couple of years ago, they pushed Clapton's guitar forward a little bit more. So if you don't like the remixes or the remasters, you can go back to the originals. But I'm excited by it, Johnny.
Johnny, you. I got something to say, but I'll let Johnny go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, say something.
And on No Alibis, you don't have to hear Daryl Hall sing, so it's even better.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a difference, then great. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hanging out with you guys when it drops, and we can come in and we'll spend a couple of hours, and we'll come back and we'll reconvene and we'll talk about what we like or what we don't like about the remixes.
Just listen 10 seconds at a time and compare it.
Yeah.
You're right.
You'll know literally. From my experience, you'll know within seconds. Definitely.
John, you're right because we've listened to these albums so much that, like you said before, like something is going to jump out at you, like that you're going to hear differently than you heard. Even if it's just cleaned up, the master just cleans it up and things are a little more focused. That we will pick up on things that we probably never heard before right away because we've listened to these thousands of times, these songs,
Before we shoot off, Johnny, there's a question here that Holly's been asking a couple of times, and we've spoken about this on the channel here. We did a show, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, guys, where we were talking about the Starfleet project. But Holly wants to know what you think about the Starfleet project that Brian May released. Have you had a listen to it? Do you want to share your experiences?
I'm going to disappoint everybody. Not in a bad way. It's I got the box set and I did an unboxing video, but I've listened to zero so far. I've been really busy. So I know what the album sounds like because I've listened to it, a million times, but the extra tracks I haven't listened yet because I just simply had enough time, but I know I'm going to love every single one. And I can't wait to hear what the differences are. Brian May says that there's an evolution from the first one all the way through until they started to nail it. I think he said about the 6 or 7s, and then they kept going to 11 tracks. So I'm
Sure.
really excited to sit back and really analyze it. But that's why I haven't listened to it, because I don't want to do it casually. I don't want to put it in
Sure.
a car and drive around and listen to it. I want to sit down. Usually I listen to stuff in my shop when I'm working on stuff, and I haven't been down there. But that's where I can really just let my mind listen and take it all in, absorb it, like a nice meal. And 11 tracks of the same song. You got to really sit back and spend some time with that. And
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect example, though, that brought that up, as to like the first single off the album was the remixed, re-edited version of the Starfleet theme song, the first one. And when you listen to it, it's obvious that it was chopped up and just like, sharpened to like, 4 minutes long, whatever. And, Alan Gratzer's drums, like Alex Van Halen's on OU812, didn't sound very good. They just sounded like wet, wet towels or something on the guitar.
I always kind of liked the sound back, when I had it on a tape.
Right.
And
Sure.
that always stood out to me, was the drum sound. And it sounded so different to me than anything else I had heard. And lately when I've been doing research and stuff about it and hearing about the drum tracks, I'm like,
yeah,
I never complained about them. I thought they sounded kind of cool, heavy,
and natural. They sounded real.
It sounded like a room. You could hear them in a room.
So you're going to be disappointed, Johnny. You're going to be disappointed when you hear this track on the album, because what I really believe they did is they went in there and they took, in Logic you can do this, and Steven Slate drums. You can basically use the actual hits of the drums as triggers, and you can just plug in drum sounds that you want. And I believe that they did that because they sound like thunderous and clean and modern.
Yep.
And I know that Brian went to Alan Gratzer, and Alan Gratzer gave it his blessing. He thinks they sound great. But basically, Brian May could get away with it because as much as it's revered in like the Van Halen circles and stuff like that, the Starfleet album, OU812, they could never get away with doing that because it's like a Mona Lisa or a masterpiece painting, and it's just too many people know it and things like that. And it would be like, sacrilegious to touch that.
Wolfgang goes in and redoes all the guitar tracks.
Right, exactly. It's because basically if you're putting sounds, even if Alex says it, well, I'm still hitting the drums that are triggering those new sounds. It's not going to be real to people. But that said, if they went in and remixed it, they did without touching the source tape and just brought the bass up and tried to make the drums sound a little better. I don't think that that's like committing an ultimate sin or anything like that, but I just don't think they have any interest in doing that. It is what it is, and that's it. So, and that's people's opinions, but I don't hold your breath for more bass. You may get a little more on the remaster, on the re-EQ a little bit on the certain frequencies, but like I said, they're going to be limited with what they could do there too, because you switch, you crank up that frequency a little bit for the bass. It's going to affect that frequency on the guitar channel also, because it's just,
there's only so much space you can occupy. You can't just keep cramming sound into that space. It doesn't work that way.
Right, exactly. So we'll see though. We'll have a show on it, but
Awesome. Johnny, it's been a fantastic time hanging out with you, and we look forward to doing a few more shows with you in the future. We'd love to get you back on, and we've only scratched the surface. Look at the time. We've been here for an hour and 45 minutes, and we've had a bit of fun. We've spoken about a couple of interesting topics, folks, and if you're watching on replay, I'll attach Johnny's YouTube channel in the description. Please go and subscribe to him. I'll have Jimmy's YouTube channel too, because we've mentioned it, because he's got some shenanigans going on his channel that you'll want to watch. And John, we'll have your social media links as well attached. Please go and subscribe to our friends. A subscription costs you nothing, but it helps that channel. On our community page too, folks, we've got our channels. All our friends are on there. If you can go and please subscribe to all our friends on there. If you want to be on there, Johnny, we'll put you on there. We'll put you on our channels page as well. We'll put you on there because every show we do, we ask everybody to go and subscribe to our friends. A subscription costs you nothing, but it helps that channel immeasurably. One subscription is the difference from being 999 to 1,000 subscribers.
And Johnny, keep us informed with, if anything goes on with the videos, if they get backups somehow or whatever, or what the future plan is. Definitely let us know so we can let people know what's going on too.
Come on the channel and talk about it.
Yeah.
What's that?
Come on the channel and talk about any updates that you have on your channel with that. Yeah, please do.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff I'd want to talk about, but I don't. It's really messy. There's some backstabbing going on. I'll say that by somebody that I haven't mentioned.
Sure.
But you all know who it is.
Sure.
We
appreciate the fact that you haven't mentioned that. And we know we know who it is. And if you want to know who it is, touch base with Johnny or us here, and we'll tell you who it is.
I've told people that have messaged me, but publicly I haven't said, because it just opens up a big can of worms. And these people are who they are, and they always will be. So what's the point? It
doesn't solve anything either, because your intentions were pure with this whole anything that you've done with this. It wasn't to profit off of it. It was basically, like I said, a historical record, and anything that was being used on this was not for profit, and the people should realize that. And the reason
down isn't because of what I was doing. It's because somebody else wanted to gain from. It's really hard to explain, but they're gaining from other people's
being thrown under the bus.
Not being around. Yeah. So I paid for somebody else's project, basically, is what happened.
Yeah.
They forced me to pay for their project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun. But moving forward, I want to make sure that I protect myself so it doesn't happen again from somebody else. It could, right? It's learned a lesson.
Yeah. But you know what? Your point is great. Sorry, Andrew, but your point is great, John, that this stuff that's may not live forever, that's going to be on here. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that you're pointing to another way that it could live forever on somebody's coffee table or a bookshelf. So that's, I think.
And, I would be really proud if I had a book and it sat on a shelf right beside somebody else's book. And it's way for me to go like, there you go, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We can do this too.
And that's
well, if there's anything we can do here on our channel to help promote anything that you do, it's building those networks, and it's taking advantage of social media contacts that you have, that we want to do here on the channel in relation to what you're doing, because other people have done the same thing for us as well, for our channel. So it's all about doing that. So we're more than happy to do that in the future. So keep in touch, Johnny.
I definitely will. Like I said, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but, I'm slowly getting the wheels turning. It's got to happen here, right? First, how I want to do it. I want to do it right.
Well, yeah. You got to get over it too. If you've been thrown under the bus,
that's why I've been so quiet. I just decided, instead of being angry about it, focus my attention on a lot of other things in my life that I really enjoy, and I can always come back to this, and I will.
Right.
Speaking of under the bus too, guys, if you guys haven't checked out Caleb's channel that he's involved with, the Under the Bus Network, go and check those guys out as well. Johnny.
One last thing with Caleb here. I never knew this about, did you see the comment? That was the first time Ed used a neck pickup on any recording, a solo on any recording was Let Me Out, his solo on there. And then when you think about it, yeah, it kind of does sound like a neck pickup. Isn't that amazing? That was the first time on recording that we know of that he, I did not know that.
I'm going to go and listen to it.
Yeah.
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 Cool. I did not know that.
I hear it in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That part.
At the time it was like, it's Eddie, but like I've never heard him before.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So anyway, thank everybody in the chat too. I think it was a lot of great stuff in the chat tonight.
Awesome. So, like I say, folks, I'll have everybody's social media links attached to the description. Please go and check out Johnny B, John Conklin, and Jimmy V. Go and check our friends out on our channel's page. If you haven't subscribed to what we do here, we would appreciate it. Every subscriber we get, we subscribe back. We're out of here.
Mm-hmm.